How will our roads change over the next 2 decades, and how many more people are going to be moving here? According to the Bureau of Economic and Business Research, by 2035, Sarasota's population could grow by nearly 170,000 people. Manatee's could increase by around the same amount. That would mean more than 1 million residents in our counties. Those are the high ends of the estimates, but no matter what, we can expect substantial growth. And joining us now for more on that influx of people and how it can impact our roads is Patrick Gannon, the president of the Sarasota Downtown Condo Association, David Hutchinson, executive director of the Metropolitan Planning Organization, and Norm Schimmel of Sarasota's Tourist and Development Council. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. David, I don't envy your position. I mean, how do you plan and execute programs to deal with that kind of influx of people when it's already this bad?
Well, it could be a lot worse, and this is still one of the best places in the whole United States to live. Yeah. And our local jurisdictions are working proactively to generate more funds, to build more improvements, so to accommodate some of this growth.
You talked about funds. I guess that is the multi-billion-dollar question, because there has been a reluctance, at least on the federal level, to take on infrastructure for the last couple of years. Interestingly, just today, Donald Trump was talking about infrastructure, and so was Democrats in Congress. This is something that people from Paul Ryan to the Senate Majority Leader have not been really in favor of for the last few days in terms of investing that kind of money in infrastructure. So where does the money come from?
That is the question. It'll be very interesting to see what happens if there's a true will to beef up infrastructure funding. There's a current transportation bill in place that provided a 5-year authorization with 4 years of funding at a 2009 level in 2015. So we were not adding a lot of new money to transportation, sort of maintaining the status quo as far as investments and maintenance. So if there is a true will to make something happen, then we need to have shovel-ready projects.
Patrick, downtown Sarasota is so wonderful in so many different ways, but you hear the knock that there are just too many cars and the roads are narrow. It's very difficult for people to navigate at this point. What is your concern about how this is going to impact people who live downtown and the future of the real estate market there?
Well, it's certainly a large impact with the influx of people coming in, but a lot of that is being brought about and supported with all the new development. And the city of Sarasota took the proactive approach 2 years ago to move from the county's transportation impact fee to the multimodal impact fee that they implemented within the city. And just last year, that produced over $500,000 in funds, and that was with the impact fee, I think, set about half of what it had been before. Now, just this week, the county commissioners approved to raise impact fees by almost 35%, and the city staff is working on a proposal that will be brought before the city commission early next year for adjusting, whichever way they want to go, the impact fees there. So we could see upwards of $1 million of impact fee money coming just from the developments to help out with a lot of the infrastructure, and especially the multimodal aspect of that.
And we want to dive into that topic even more in our next block. But Norm, a lot of the problems, issues, and obstacles are not necessarily about money. It's about the decision making. Is that not correct?
Some of the decision making, I'll use the word questionable.
Specifically.
And for instance, you have and we're concerned with the full county, but you have an intersection 41 in Gulfstream. Regardless of what they're doing, the 2 right lanes in a rainstorm all flood. So you're left with 1 lane, regardless of what they're doing there, regardless of what the construction is, which cuts off restaurants, which cuts off entrances. And there seemed to be very little thought, just using that intersection, of that even being there. It's ridiculous.
All right, we're going to have much more of that coming up with our roundtable. But when we return, traffic isn't just a problem for those here on the mainland. There are also challenges specific to our communities on the barrier islands. Details when we return. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we are discussing the future of traffic across the Suncoast. Our guests tonight include Patrick Gannon, the president of the Sarasota Downtown Condo Association, David Hutchinson, executive director of the Metropolitan Planning Organization, and Norm Schimmel of Sarasota's Tourist Development Council. And Norm, I know you're a big fan of these water taxis. Why do you think this is one of the solutions? Well,
firstly, it eliminates the use of car. But for instance, let's assume you had a water taxi that started at Marina Jacks. I'm not leaving out Venice or Siesta Key, but started at Marina Jacks, went to Lido, went to City Island, then went to the Van Wezel Center, and then back to Marina Jacks. And you would have connectors. You would have a collector, which is a trolley, to take people either in town or to someplace within the complex. And that would eliminate the cars. The biggest problem you have with that is not so much the boat or the cost or anything like that. It's where you park your car and the ability to park your car and how much it costs to build something like that. But it also has to be marketed with music and seasonal things, and it can be done. It's been done in other cities.
Well, where?
Well, we talked about Tampa just now coming in. They've got the start of it. It's in San Francisco. And the other place I saw it was in San Diego, too. San Diego has a couple of ferries coming across. But the way you start is you start it in season, but it has to be really merchandised so that people will use it. But the biggest problem, just like building a bridge from Longboat Key to, let's say, University, the biggest problem is not the cost of the bridge, it's the cost of the land on both sides. So the biggest problem is the cost of the land where you can park the cars.
I think there's actually, two possible solutions. I think what Norm was talking about is more of a water shuttle, where you have fixed routes and certain major points of access and parking, et cetera. The other is a true water taxi, and that's already operating in St. Pete. A company like Coastal Life has a Uber-type app where you call up, the boat picks you up at a dock or maybe your condo on the bay or something like that, and then takes you to a restaurant and back. So it's more on-demand. Unique point to point.
Well, we were talking during the break about the service that's now going from Pinellas County to Tampa, but how much does that cost? And are people willing to pay that, not just for a night out on the time, but maybe to commute to work?
It's got to be convenient and affordable. I really liked what Captain Baldwin said, in that he's going to go for some commuting type traffic, people who are going every day and who might not, who are trying to go at the peak time for traffic, so that will actually take some cars off the road.
All right, now going back to some of our earlier conversations when we're talking about trolleys and to getting people around town to try to alleviate the congestion downtown. Another question is, where does this work well? And I'm not talking about the major metropolitan areas like New York or Boston or Washington or San Francisco. I know they spend billions in Miami. It doesn't work down there. I know they spend a lot of money in Tampa, and it's more of a touristy thing.
Buffalo, which is a relatively small city, but it's still a city, like Sarasota, has a functioning train and a water taxi service, water ferry service on their waterfront. Okay. And it's revitalized their downtown.
Right. And let's move on to yet another area, and that is, if you're just looking at Sarasota itself, we've been going back and forth with parking meters and parking garages. Norm, your blood vessels are expanding as we speak now because they're here, they're not here. And is this an answer to anything? I'm concerned with tourism. 1 out of 5 people that work in Sarasota are touched by tourism. There are 1 out of 5. A Stillman's study showed that and included recirculated money, but they're touched by it. What I'm concerned about is if you can't get from point A to point B, and then you add parking meters. If you're on Lido and you have a dinner in town, and I'm concerned about the in-town merchants, and it takes you 45 minutes to go over the bridge, and then you hear they have parking meters in town, you're not going in town. It's just not going to happen. And Patrick, I know in areas where you have like permitted parking for residents, but people coming and going have to find a meter, it's just tough.
Well, in the city of Sarasota downtown, right now, the proposed parking meter program is only affecting 11% of the parking spaces. The parking garages, now there's 2 major parking garages. There's a private parking garage on the east end of Main Street. Those are all free. The street parking off of Main Street, it will remain free, limited to 2 or 3 hours. So there's plenty of opportunities for people to park for free. The other thing that the city is doing is they're right now negotiating a contract for a downtown circulator. This will be a free set of electric vehicles, 6-passenger vehicles that will begin be on demand instead of a fixed route. So any of the residents in the downtown area, so the 4,000 or 5,000 apartment residents living in the downtown area within about a 2-mile radius, will be able to use an app and have the shuttle come pick them up and take them to the restaurants.
And not just residents, visitors who
too.
are willing to park once and then, spend their
park
time
at the
doing
garage
that.
and then take the shuttle.
Doesn't that complicate the traffic problems, which are already complicated as they are
Well,
right
actually
now?
it reduces because it takes the people who would be driving around looking for a parking place off there. So you go and you park at the garage knowing that you can either walk a few blocks or you can get a shuttle to take you.
And the circles around once again to where does the money come from? You talked about some local revenue streams. What about the state? What about the federal government? You folks are talking to our state and federal legislators all the time. We talked about the federal level and the difficulty of it. And has the state ever really significantly funded some of these projects?
They've contributed, and some existing systems like in Jacksonville have received state and federal funding for operations and maintenance of their state of good repair. So there are a few programs that haven't helped our part of Florida very much. I think that the local governments that have supported or seen ballot measures recently, Northport in 2012, the City of Venice and Manatee County this past election both had half-cent sales taxes that passed that will be bringing in millions of dollars a year for transportation improvements.
And what is the likeliness of that being passed if it came up in Sarasota?
No one knows.
Yeah.
No one
But
knows.
right now, for instance, the downtown circulator is being funded with the tax increment funds that came out of the Community Redevelopment Agency over the last few years. So that money was banked for this type of multimodal, and the city's going to help fund that at least for the first couple of years. The idea being that these type of vehicles can be shrink wrapped with advertising, and so local merchants can then take over and pay monthly advertising fees to keep that whole program going. So they'll test and see how well it works in the core, and then they can even expand it up 41 to include the universities so that you have the colleges able to move folks around, even
to
maybe
St. Armand's.
shuttle out to St. Armand's or up to the airport. So
Now,
those are all a variety of ways that the private sector can take over funding programs like that once they've been proven to really generate the kind of traffic.
And if we expand the conversation to our larger roadways and the highways, and Lord knows we see so much construction on 75 right now, the interesting part in one of the stories that we showed tonight is that when you take on these kinds of projects, in many cases, or at least in many metropolitan areas, they're outdated by the time that they are completed. So how do we know the improvements that are being made now are going to be sufficient for the next 20 years?
I would say that we know that they won't be sufficient. And here's an article from 20 years ago. It's an editorial that was looking back 20 years and what were the issues: parking at the beach, traffic congestion. So in spite of all of our improvements, there will still be traffic congestion. The more things change, the more they stay the same.
Well, I mean, so what's the answer there? I mean, urban planning has been around for many years, and this is what we pay people to study.
I think that what Patrick talked about, what Norm talked about, we are starting to try some of these innovative solutions that will help make it better for the future.
But it's based on the fact that with the MPO, they've been able to put together a regional transportation plan, and seeing the big picture has helped the different entities, municipalities say, well, here's what we can do, and if what we're doing is a part of that big plan, then that's great. So for example, MPO and the city has worked out a series of, a dozen or so roundabouts along US 41, all the way from University around through town out to Mount. And one way they're getting that funded is a development at the Quay Sarasota is working with the city to actually pre-fund putting a roundabout in at Fruitville, and then gets reimbursed as the other monies come through. So it's an innovative way to.
We're going to pause the conversation just for one more minute, but when we return, we'll have final thoughts from our guests, plus we'll share with you what some of our viewers are saying about a historic day in Washington. Welcome back. An annual survey of Sarasota County residents showed traffic and development among their top concerns. Looking 20 years ahead, how do we make sure and we adapt an infrastructure to a growing population? Our guests join us for final thoughts. And Norm, I know you have two things that you want to get to.
Absolutely, positively. I really don't believe in roundabouts. I don't believe our drivers know how to handle them. I don't think slowing traffic will make it move quicker. I think you need a computerized motion system, as they have in some major cities now on all of the major roadways. And then the other thing I want to say is 75, and I drive regularly down to Fort Myers, and you're seeing the enlargement of it. My fear is it becoming the 405 going into the 101 in LA. That's my fear.
I was on 75 down in Fort Myers this past weekend, and it is very, very difficult, and a lot of accidents down there. You know, David, you know, it gets down to money and planning.
We will see toll lanes, we will see express lanes in the future, probably even in our area eventually. We're going to see a lot of technology improvements. We're already using automated systems, advanced traffic management systems, and some of these adaptive signal intersections.
And Patrick, are you confident that we could address these problems and not affect the quality of life and what we love so much about Sarasota right now?
Well, I think the people involved in it will help move things in the right direction, but also will learn how to adapt and find different ways. And I would have to disagree with Norm in terms of the roundabouts. I have found them extremely effective ways to get around town where we have them. And the facts have shown that they are much safer, and also safer now for pedestrians.
How many accidents have there been in the last year?
In downtown Sarasota, where we have roundabouts, only one where a motorcycle crashed through the middle of one in the middle of the night, going too fast.
Jacaranda, 106 in 6 months.
Yeah.
And we have to
Poorly
leave it
designed.
there.
Yeah.
That's a whole other subject, but we love the artwork. Before we go, we want to share with you what some of you are saying about a historic meeting taking place today at the White House. President-elect Donald Trump met President Obama for the first time today in the Oval Office. The two spoke for more than an hour. Trump said he looked forward to having Obama's counsel. And here is what some of you are saying. Jack Turley writes, well, hopefully the president will give Trump a copy of his tax returns so he can release them, and also hand him a copy of his birth certificate just for the hell of it. Roger Dresden writes, so who was it that said politics makes strange bedfellows? And my favorite one, Ian Wan writes, he needs to tell him about the Presidential Book of Secrets in the Library of Congress. Wait, maybe that was a movie I watched. If you'd like to join the conversation about tonight's topic, just visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/news@7. And if you want to watch past Roundtable discussions, they're available on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. I want to thank our guests for being here tonight. Patrick Gannon is the president of the Downtown Sarasota Condo Association. David Hutchinson is executive director of the Metropolitan Planning Organization. And Norm Schimmel serves on Sarasota's Tourist Development Council.